Chapter 3 The Helpers. Terry arrived with a milk jug. "Long way to the farm," Polo observed as he made the tea. "I didn't go to the farm," said Terry. "There's plenty of milk in the cooler." He looked flushed and embarrassed. "As a matter of fact, I had a letter to write, so, as you had guests to amuse, I thought I'd get it written now." Terry reached into the tent for a large biscuit tin. Polo winked slyly at the boys. "Letters are powerful things," he said. "There's those who write letters, and those who don't." "Obviously," said Terry. "Not so obvious," Polo retorted. "Silly thing to say. I like postcards." "Comic postcards?" Clapper asked. "Comic postcards, pretty postcards, sad postcards, all sorts of postcards." "He's got a trunk full of them," said Terry. "Posted from all over the world. Done it for years and years." "You must have dozens of friends," said Joey. "Dozens? Hundreds, laddie, hundreds. There isn't a country in the world, and scarcely any big town in any country, I can't walk into and say hello to a friend. That's the way to keep friends. Never write to them." "But you have written hundreds of postcards," Clapper protested. "Don't you call that writing to friends?" "He only sends postcards to himself," Terry explained. Clapper sighed gustily. "I don't know what to make of him. Fancy flippin' postcards to yourself." Polo stirred the teapot vigorously, then took out the spoon and waggled it at Clapper. "Supposing you loved to collect postcards. Supposing you had an ambition to own every sort of postcard that has ever been printed and sold. What would be the best way to make sure you obtain them, eh?" Clapper shrugged. "Just buy them, I suppose." "That's no fun," Polo replied as he poured tea into the cups from a height of about 4 feet. "I like my tea with a froth in it. Do you laddies like your tea with froth or without froth?" "Does it make a difference?" Joey grinned. But Polo was quite serious. "Of course it does. What makes froth? Air makes froth. Froth is air contained in tiny bubbles of liquid. Air is nourishing. Can't do without air. Gives tea a good flavor." He finished pouring from an even higher angle above the cups, yet each cup was filled to the same level, and not a drop spilled on the saucers or tray. Terry passed the cups to Joey and Clapper. "Don't mind Polo," he said. "He has his own ideas about many things." "So we have noticed," said Joey with a chuckle. "No fun at all," Polo continued. "Postcards without stamps or writing on them are just pieces of shiny paper. That puts life into them. Life means memories. Happy, sad, exciting memories. Years later, you look at a postcard, you see the stamp from India or Russia or China or Peru. You see the postmark and the date, and into your mind comes a picture. A living picture. Ah, you say to yourself, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, on that day in that year, I was walking through a street market and drinking sherbet out of a tall beaker. The sherbet was sold by a man who carried a big brass frame on his back, a frame covered in tinkling bells, and you could hear him coming, even above the babble of voices. He had a goat skin of water slung under one arm, and he mixed the sherbet fresh for each customer. I remember how hot it was, how the market smelled and how the flies swarmed and the white dust glared in the sun. It was all new and exciting, but that moment will never come again, because there's only ever one first time for anything." "So, on that afternoon you bought a postcard and posted it to yourself?" said Joey. Polo nodded. "More than one, sometimes 3 or 4 a day." "But if you're traveling around all the time, where did you post them to?" "London. Always to London. My agent held them for me until I returned from a tour." "You mean a house agent?" Clapper asked. "No, a booking agent. All theatrical people have an agent. A good agent obtains work for you. He books your acts with theaters and circuses all over the world." "Terry, you're neglecting our guests." Polo spoke sharply. "Pass the cakes and biscuits." Terry had been sitting cross-legged, nursing his biscuit tin, and staring with a faraway look in his eyes. "Oh, yes, sure. Help yourselves." "Concentration," said Polo sadly. "Concentration is an art, and true art is genius made perfect by endless practice and striving for perfection. And as nothing is ever perfect, there is no end to your efforts. People wish, and in wishing, believe they can succeed. Terry goes like that. One minute he's with you, the next he's far, far away. You see my problem?" Joey smiled at Terry. Looked to me as if Terry was concentrating pretty hard on something. Dreams, said Polo, draining his cup. He wishes to succeed in a certain way, but so eager is he for success that his dreams of what it will be like when he succeeded, instead of how he can make himself succeed. Polo snapped his fingers with a loud cracking sound. He's gone again. Terry, attend to our guests, laddie. Terry's gaze returned from the treetops and focused on Joey and Clapper. You've got it bad, haven't you, chum? Said Clapper sympathetically. Joey looked at his friend in surprise. Clapper wasn't usually so understanding. Terry glared accusingly at Polo. You've told them about Rosa. You must trust me, Terry. I have a very far-sighted mind in such things. I believe these boys were meant to join us. You see how it happened? By accident. They shouldn't have been in the wood in the first place. There you go again, Polo cried, scoffing at the ifs. He turned to Joey. He does it all the time. Everybody does, except me. You'd think I'd be used to it by now, wouldn't you? I'm afraid I'm lost again, said Joey politely. I don't know what you're talking about. Ifs, said Polo. Simple enough, isn't it? People are always saying, if this hadn't happened, or if I hadn't done this, or that, or the other. Polo began to refill the cups, shaking his head sadly. If you hadn't been in the wood, if you hadn't seen us, if. Silly. There's no if at all. You were in the wood, you did see us. Wishing you hadn't a silly waste of time and thought. Oh dear, he's gone again. Pass me his cup, Clapper. Just take it out of his hand. He won't feel it. Clapper took the cup and saucer from Terry's unresisting hand and passed them to Polo. Is he always like this, Polo? Polo filled the cup to frothy level and handed it back to Clapper. Unless he's driving or practicing, but even then it creeps up on him and spoils his concentration. That's the problem. I can't be forever waking him up. I need help. But he's not asleep, said Joey. His eyes are open. Being in love is a wonderful thing, commented Polo. You can live in another world, with your mind, of course. That's what Terry is doing. Daydreaming? Clapper suggested. Daydreaming and mooning. Wake him up again, Clapper, before his tea grows cold. Oi, mate! Clapper jabbed Terry in the ribs. Here's your tea. Oh, thanks. I can do without that. You've just had one cup. Have I? Oh, yes, of course. Have a biscuit. I've had 6 already. Clapper edged closer to Terry. That was a super vanishing trick. How's it done? Terry became alert and answered immediately. It's the way you bind the rope around you. There's one special part of the rope which has a secret release, but you have to be very quick and not let people see how you do it. Will you practice it again in front of us? Terry glanced at Polo. That might be a good idea. I think I need an audience, especially a quick-minded audience like these two. Terry smiled at Joey and Clapper. Would you like to help? Do you live near here? Are you on holiday from school? I'll pay you too. Every time you see me make a mistake, I'll give you a bonus. How about that, Polo? Polo reached out one hand and took a number of playing cards from the back of Joey's neck, and with the other hand brought a pen from Clapper's ear. Hey, that's my pen again, Joey exclaimed. Sorry, just habit. Polo looked at Terry. Yes, a fine idea. The boys are staying with Clapper's aunt. We should drive them home and introduce ourselves. Cool, do you mean that? Clapper was excited. Could we sleep in the tent? Joey asked. That'd be fun. No, Polo replied bluntly. Terry and I sleep in the tent. Sorry, but I've always wanted to sleep in my own tent in a wood ever since I was a Boy Scout. Don't see why I should give it up for you. Don't be selfish, Polo, said Terry. I shall be selfish if I want, Polo retorted amicably. It's my tent. They can sleep in the caravan. He chuckled. That's a new name for a caravan with all modern conveniences. Will your auntie let us? Joey asked Clapper. Dunno, Joey. Annie might, but Uncle may be a bit stuffy over it. Where do they live? Terry asked. On a new estate just outside Chichester. Been waiting years for a house. Annie was on stage once, Clapper added hopefully. Tea finished? Polo asked briskly. Let's pack up the gear and drive the laddies home. Joey and Clapper were surprised by the way everything was arranged. All the food in tins and various containers was taken back to the caravan, a luxuriously fitted, rear-engined, German-made vehicle. Other gear, including all the props for using magic tricks, folded and packed neatly into a large case. The tent was folded down from the top so that the section wooden base could be locked. Polo explained how this took to pieces and folded flat, then was carried on a luggage rack to the top of the caravan. The boys hadn't realized that such a wonderful selection of gadgets existed in the small camp amid the trees, nor that the caravan would be so luxurious. It had 3 sleeping bunks which folded away during daytime to form seats and a table. Every inch of space between the driving seat was made use of by having fitted cupboards and racks to hold clothes and stores. A small gas stove, fed by a butane gas cylinder, stood in one corner, and a stainless steel sink had a proper tap which drew water from a large plastic tank near the roof of the caravan. Long windows spaced around the upper half of the bodywork were framed by colorful curtains, now drawn and hooked back. A gas burner fixed to a wall bracket supplied light at night, and several clips around the sides held broad-beamed electric torches. Extra equipment included small heaters, should the weather turn cold. These could also be used to dry clothes. A wooden, plastic-topped flat lowered from clumps near the rear door served as a writing table, ironing board, or a serving bench for hot dishes from the stove. The driving cab was fitted with the usual car controls, plus a radio to feed an extension speaker in the living room section of the caravan. Above the driving seat ran a slided rack containing books and road maps. It seemed that everything had been thought of to make the caravan a complete home on wheels, and Joey and Clapper found it fascinating. Both the boys were interested in cars and mechanical gadgets, and so appreciated various details that a less interested person might have overlooked. Details such as the cleverly designed clothes hangers, which could be hauled up to each side of the roof, instead of leaving them lying around the seats, and how all the crockery and pans fitted into clips to prevent them from rolling about when the caravan sped along the road. "Super-duper smashing," was Clapper's judgment. "Cool! Wish Smitty could see this," was Joey's verdict, and only Clapper knew how great a compliment this was. Joey and his father were great pals, and for something to be good enough for Joey to wish Smitty could see was praise, indeed. "Why not?" said Polo, who had asked some more questions about the boys' families as they had packed the camping gear. "You told me that Smitty might drive down for the weekend." "Yes," Joey was suddenly glum. "He's taking us back with him, too." "But you don't return to school yet." "No, but Clapper's aunt has some more relations arriving next week." "Well, we shall see." Polo nudged Terry to life. "Start the chariot, laddie, and stop dreaming." Terry had been sitting statue-like behind the steering wheel. "Oh, yes, of course. Where to?" Polo sighed. "Concentrate, laddie, concentrate. You've been told 3 times already." Terry grinned. 15 Pagnell Drive. We turn right when we cross the narrow bridge, then left at the next road junction, and Pagnell Drive is the first turning on the right." "Amazing!" Polo declared. He actually remembered something. "Rosa has an aunt who lives in Newport Pagnell," said Terry as he sat the vehicle moving. Polo glanced at the boys from under high-lifted eyebrows. "Do you understand that?" he asked. "Don't look at me," said Clapper. "I've given up trying to understand half either if you say." Pagnell reminded Terry of Rosa, so it was easy for him to remember the rest, said Joey. "You see?" Terry exclaimed triumphantly. "Joey's even more clever than the great Polonius Sefto." "He is indeed." Polo mopped his forehead with a red silk handkerchief, which miraculously turned into a white one. "Or more simple. Clever people don't understand simple things." "Are you calling me simple?" Joey laughed. "Only in the nicest way. There are so many clever people in the world today, and clever people can't abide simple answers to simple questions, because then they don't have a chance to show how clever they are." Polo sighed, yawned slightly, put one hand in front of his mouth, and drew out a small lemon. "Have a suck." He handed the lemon to Joey. "Very refreshing. Yes, I try to be simple, but succeed only in being clever." "Don't you ever stop doing magic tricks?" Clapper asked. "Sometimes, when I'm asleep, for instance. Then I have nightmares. I saw a lady in half and can't stick her together again, or else I strangle myself in the stocks. That's what we call the framework you saw me vanish from back in the woods. And if I have cheese and pickled onions for supper, I'll wake up yelling my head off because I've roped myself to a tree and forgotten how to escape, and I'm surrounded by roaring tigers. It's my tummy, you see. It doesn't like pickled onions, but I do." Polo sighed again. It's very unfair. Remind me to get some postcards. Terry, pull up at the first postcard shop, please. Do you bother to send them from places in England? Joey asked. Why not? There are some wonderful places in England. And then there's you laddies. What about us? Postcard. Polo snapped his fingers and whisked a colorful postcard, apparently from nowhere. My last one. He brushed Joey's shirt with gentle fingers. A bit of dust on your collar. A pen suddenly appeared in his other hand. Do you mind if I use your pen again? Joey grinned. I never saw him take it. Did you, Clapper? Of course he didn't. I took it 5 minutes ago, said Polo. It's got a weak clip. You'll lose it one of these days. I'm not exactly holding on to it today. Slow down, laddie, said Polo to Terry, or steer around the bumps. I wish to write, which he began to do with much skill considering the vibration of the vehicle. There. Polo thrust the completed postcard in front of Joey and Clapper. That will satisfy your curiosity. Joey read aloud. Dear self, today met Joey and Clapper. Joey lives in Jasmine Street, Covent Garden, London. Clapper lives in the flats close by. Bright lads, good fun, going to be friends. Tell you more later. Look after yourself. There's only one of you. Yours, Polo. I'd never think of writing to myself, but it's interesting, Joey admitted. It's crackers, said Clapper bluntly. I don't see the sense of it. Simple, said Polo, like a diary. Tells me when I met you. The picture of Chichester tells me where. My own words tell me what I thought of you and remind me of where you both live. But you can remember all that, Clapper argued. You don't need to send yourself a postcard. Ah, the innocence of the young. Memory is a wonderful thing, a precious thing, but it plays tricks on you. Some days it remembers things you don't want it to remember. Memory will tell me what I had for breakfast in Moscow 15 years ago, but I'll forget the number of the bus I traveled on yesterday from Chichester to Goodwood. Joey returned the postcard. Do you always tell yourself to look after yourself? Oh, yes, Polo replied seriously. If I don't, no one else will. It's very sad, but there it is. Do you have to write, there's only one of you? Clapper asked. Why not? There aren't any more of me, are there? I give up, said Clapper, sighing. Yes, let's change the subject, Joey suggested. Who are the Orsinis? Terry cried out. The caravan lurched as he jerked the steering wheel. The tires shrieked in protest. A passing motorist, scared by the vehicle's sudden swerve, blared his hooter furiously. Now you've done it, said Polo. I should have warned you. Better sit tight and hang on to your seats. End of chapter 3.